There's a kind of love that's never spoken, but lived in silence, every day, through gestures, glances, and even absence. The problem is, almost no one knows how to recognize it. Worse, you might be confusing love with loneliness. Or even worse, you might be loved right now, and not even realize it. In this video, based on the deep psychology of Carl Jung, you'll learn how to recognize the love that goes unspoken, and why it's more common and more dangerous than you might think. Ignore these signs, and you might miss out on something real. But if you learn to see them, you'll finally understand who truly feels something, even if they never say it. Talking about love without talking about the unconscious is like trying to understand a book just by its cover. To Carl Jung, most of our relationships don't happen on a conscious, logical, rational level. They happen in the underground of the soul, where our repressed emotions, fears, unspoken desires, traumas, and fantasies live. When we feel something for someone and can't express it, it's not just shyness or insecurity. It might be the unconscious trying to break through. And what doesn't get said almost always finds another way to show up. One of Jung's key concepts that helps explain unspoken love is projection. This happens when we see in someone else something that actually lives inside us, but we can't see it directly. We project qualities, fantasies, desires, and even repressed parts of ourselves onto someone. And then we fall in love with that image, that symbolic construction. That's why sometimes we're not really in love with the person, but with the idea we've built of them. An idea that reflects something we want to experience or heal in ourselves. Projection can be powerful, but also dangerous. It connects us, but it also confuses us. Another essential concept is the shadow. Jung said we all have a side we try to hide. Impulses, fears, desires, traits that don't match the image we want to show the world. The shadow isn't just what's bad. It's everything we've pushed down. And often, silent love is born right there. We love in silence because the feeling scares us, unsettles us, or simply clashes with who we think we're supposed to be. The shadow acts without asking permission. You might start avoiding the person who attracts you, or feel angry at them for no reason, or dream about them even after saying you don't want anything. These contradictory behaviors are clues that the unconscious is in charge. And when we talk about silent love, we can't ignore synchronicity, another striking concept from Jung. Synchronicity is when external events line up meaningfully with internal states. It's not just coincidence. It's like the universe arranging encounters, messages, subtle signs. You think about someone, and they show up. You hear a song, and it feels like it was written for you two. These moments are like winks from the unconscious, trying to show you something your mind hasn't grasped yet. Jung didn't see these experiences as magic. He saw them as symbols. And symbols are powerful because they speak directly to the deepest parts of our soul. So when someone loves in silence, it doesn't mean the feeling isn't there. Quite the opposite. It might mean the feeling is so strong it's spilled beyond conscious control. The body reacts. Gestures become more tender. The gaze changes. But the words, they get stuck. And maybe that's where the truest love reveals itself. Not in what we manage to say, but in what overflows despite the silence. There's a clear and scientifically proven sign that the unconscious is at work. When someone starts moving, talking, even breathing like you. You say something and seconds later they repeat it the same way. They laugh like you. Use your words. Sit just like you. Coincidence? Maybe. But in many cases, it's a sign of something deeper. Unconscious mirroring. There's a scientific basis for this. Mirror neurons. They're responsible for our ability to imitate and connect with others. When we feel empathy, when we admire someone or feel emotionally connected, our brain starts to copy their behavior, without us even realizing. But mirroring goes beyond a neurological reaction. It's also a subtle expression of connection. When someone starts adopting your expressions, your gestures, your way of speaking, it's like their unconscious is saying, I relate to you. It's a quiet attempt to connect, to get in sync. Now, this doesn't always mean love. It could just be likability, charisma, or a desire to fit in. But there's one detail that changes everything: consistency and exclusivity. If they only act this way with you, if the mirroring shows up even in private or more intimate moments, the signal gets stronger. It's like, without realizing it, they're trying to match your frequency. As if they're silently saying, I get you, or even, I want you to notice me. Jung believed that authentic relationships arise when there's recognition between unconscious minds. When something in me sees something in you. Mirroring is one of those paths to recognition. And that's why, sometimes, you feel an odd sense of familiarity with someone you just met. Or you catch yourself thinking, why does this person get me so quickly? Maybe it's not just chemistry. Maybe it's your two unconscious minds trying to talk, before words can even make sense. But the body doesn't stop speaking. If mirroring already reveals a hidden connection, there's another sign even harder to control: the gaze. Because unlike words, eyes don't know how to lie. There are glances that cut right through you. Not because they're invasive, but because they carry something words haven't managed to express yet. A prolonged stare that hesitates to stay, or looks away too quickly, usually says much more than it seems. Sometimes the person watches you speak, like they're trying to memorize every detail. Other times, they glance and instantly look away, as if caught in the act of feeling something they don't know how to handle. None of these reactions are neutral. There's an emotional field being activated. The gaze is a primal language. Before we learned to speak, we already knew how to look. Jung said the unconscious speaks in images and symbols. And the gaze may be the clearest symbol of human emotion. It reveals the tension, the longing, the fear, and the wonder we can't put into words. In unspoken love, the gaze is almost always the clearest clue, because it slips past control. You can hold back a word, but you can't hide the sparkle, the fixation, or the nervousness in your eyes. And it's not just about intensity. Some looks quietly say, I care about you. Others whisper, I don't know what to do with what I feel. Some carry restrained desire. Others look like they've given up, but haven't left on the inside. But beware, not every intense gaze is proof of love. Sometimes the eyes idealize. Project. Turn the other into a character in a story, and that can be dangerous. Loving in silence doesn't mean writing a movie where the other person doesn't even know they've been cast. So the gaze can be connection, or fantasy, and the difference lies in presence. If, even in silence, the person is truly there, attentive, with body and soul, maybe something real is happening, something that hasn't turned into words yet, but is already showing itself in the invisible. And when the gaze and gestures align, another sign appears. So subtle, it almost slips by unnoticed. It's the kind of memory that holds not what's obvious, but what you didn't even remember saying. You casually mentioned once that you prefer your coffee without sugar, and days later, there it is, just how you like it. Or you brought up, almost in passing, a childhood book, and they show up with an old edition in their hands. These gestures aren't random. They reveal emotional attention. Remembering the details is a clear sign that someone is emotionally invested, because the brain holds on to what the heart considers important. And when someone remembers what you say, even the smallest things, it's because in some way you take up space inside them. But it's not just about a good memory. It's deeper. It's a kind of emotional listening, the kind that goes beyond information and into connection. The person isn't just hearing you, they're absorbing who you are. Of course, not every thoughtful gesture means love. Some people are naturally attentive. Others are trained to please and use these gestures to build quick closeness. That's why context matters. What sets genuine affection apart from an attempt to impress is the ease, the naturalness. When care shows up without fanfare, without needing immediate return, without craving recognition, that's when it's most real. It's the kind of tenderness that doesn't ask for applause. And when that comes from someone who isn't like that with everyone, the signal gets even stronger. Remembering a small detail becomes a silent message. I pay attention to you. You matter. Small gestures are like hidden notes tucked into everyday life. They speak quietly, but say so much. And in stories of unspoken love, it's often these details that carry the weight of the feeling, in the absence of words, in the gentleness of presence. But what happens when, despite all these signs, the person pulls away? When closeness doesn't bring people together, but scares them? That's the paradox of silent love. The more real it is, the more it might trigger the urge to retreat. You feel there's something there. The connection is made. The glances meet. The exchange is real. But suddenly they pull back. No fight, no explanation, just distance. They go cold, disappear for a few days, get more distant, more rational. And you wonder, what did I do wrong? Maybe nothing. Maybe the closeness touched something they're not ready to face. When a feeling starts to break through someone's emotional control, many people retreat. Not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. That's the paradox. The deeper the affection, the greater the fear of facing it. This distance might feel like rejection, and sometimes it is, but in many cases, it's a form of unconscious self-protection. Silent love often comes with ambivalence, the desire to be close, and the fear of losing oneself in the relationship. The person wants it, but doesn't know how to deal with it, so they create distance, avoid, go quiet. Carl Jung said that everything we repress doesn't disappear, it becomes shadow. And often, it's the shadow that pushes someone away just when the emotional bond is growing stronger. The fear of being vulnerable, of repeating a trauma, of losing one's individuality, all of that may be working behind the scenes. There's also the attachment pattern. People with an avoidance style feel uncomfortable with emotional intimacy. They connect, but when things get intense, they pull away. On the flip side, people with anxious attachment feel the opposite. The more someone pulls away, the closer they want to get. The result? An emotional dance of push and pull that no one can quite explain. And that's where the danger lies. Assuming distance means disinterest can lead to unnecessary frustration. On the other hand, insisting on a relationship with someone emotionally unavailable can feed illusions and bring pain. The key is to watch the pattern. If distance always shows up when intimacy grows, that's a sign. A message from the unconscious saying, there's something here that needs to be seen before it can be lived. Jung wrote, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Sometimes the other person's withdrawal doesn't just reveal their inner conflicts, it exposes yours too. And in that uncomfortable mirror, true self-awareness begins. Still, even in distance, something lingers. It's the small gestures that keep saying, without words, I know you're here, and I still care. Did you get home safe? Don't forget to eat. Grab a jacket, it got cold. They're not declarations. There are no flowers or grand promises, but they carry raw affection. In stories of unspoken love, everyday care is often one of the most consistent and most overlooked signs. Some people can't say, I like you, but show it every day through small acts. They notice how you're doing. Offer help without being asked. Notice when you go quiet, and somehow they try to be there, without taking up too much space. This kind of love doesn't impose. It offers, quietly, without big displays, but always present. It's the kind of presence that brings ease, that creates safety, that cares for your well-being without expecting anything in return. But there's an important nuance here. Not all care comes from genuine love. Sometimes, a thoughtful gesture hides emotional neediness, the attempt to be needed as a way to feel valued. It's subtle, but there's a difference between caring out of affection and caring to be accepted. True care doesn't demand anything back. It doesn't control, doesn't suffocate, doesn't seek reward. It observes, embraces, supports, and respects the other person's space. When someone shows that kind of constant attention without asking for the spotlight, without expecting applause, maybe love is already there. Unspoken, but lived. In an age of loud relationships and instant affection, small gestures have been underestimated. But in the quiet of everyday care lives a kind of love that doesn't need to prove itself, just keep being. And when that care becomes so specific it feels like a reflection, that's when someone doesn't just care. They start changing habits, tastes, even opinions to align with who you are. You compliment an outfit, and they start dressing like that. You mention a movie, and days later, they've watched it, ready to talk about it with you. When someone begins shaping themselves around your opinions, something's going on, and it might not be just affinity. The constant search for your approval can be one of the most silent and most disguised signs of unspoken affection. As if, without saying it, the person is asking, please see me in a good light. Affection becomes an effort to please. This dynamic can come from a beautiful place, admiration. When we like someone, it's natural to want to impress, show our best side, build bridges. But when the pursuit becomes persistent, when someone seems to measure their every move based on your thoughts, something deeper might be happening. Often this comes with idealization. The person starts seeing you not as you are, but as they wish you were. And at the same time, they try to become who they think you want. It becomes an exchange where no one is fully being themselves. Jung warned about this kind of projection. Relationships built on the need for approval tend to be fragile, because the connection forms around an ideal, not reality. So, if someone orbits your validation, pay attention. Is there affection? Maybe. But there could also be insecurity, fear of rejection, a craving for acceptance. And where fear lives, love gets stuck, caught between what's felt and what's being performed. But what happens when that need for approval goes beyond words? When the body, which never lies, starts to betray the persona someone's trying to maintain. Because some people can hide their feelings in conversation, but not in the way their body reacts when you walk in. She's loud with everyone, but more reserved around you. He's relaxed in the group, but freezes up when you arrive. The change is subtle, but visible. The energy shifts. The behavior recalibrates. This kind of shift is one of the most common and most involuntary signs of hidden emotion. It's not planned. It's the body reacting to someone's presence. The tone of voice changes, posture shifts, nervous jokes slip in, or an awkward silence appears that doesn't match their usual vibe. Jung spoke about the persona, the social mask we wear to fit into the world. We all have one. It's not fake, it's functional. But when we feel something for someone, the persona starts to fail, and the shadow shows up. We become more vulnerable, more aware of how we're being seen. Spontaneity turns into self-consciousness. That change in behavior can say more than 1,000 words. It's like your presence triggers an emotional alert mode, as if they're trying to present their best self, without even realizing it. But here's something important. A change in behavior doesn't always mean affection. Sometimes it's just social discomfort, shyness, or general insecurity. The key is comparison. Is this how they act with everyone, or only with you? When the shift is exclusive, it's a sign that you touch something deeper. It could be admiration, attraction, fear of vulnerability, or all of it at once. Because silent love is also this. Not knowing what to do with what you feel. And in the middle of that emotional confusion, the body speaks. It flinches, retreats, reveals, protects, and you notice. You can't explain it, but you feel it. So how do you tell what's real love from what's just fear, neediness, or projection? The answer isn't in what the other person does. It's in how you feel when faced with those signs. Not every silent gesture is born from love. Not every memory, every bit of care, every cautious approach means genuine emotion. Sometimes, what looks like affection is need. What feels like connection is actually attachment. And that's where people get hurt. When we're emotionally involved, we want to believe. We search for signs, interpret gestures, assign meaning to things that might be nothing more than the unconscious, replaying old patterns. Jung said that what remains unresolved inside us, we repeat on the outside. We reenact in relationships what we still need to understand in ourselves. That's why it's so important to pause and look honestly. What I'm receiving from the other, or giving. Is it love or attachment? The difference might seem subtle, but it changes everything. Real love has one fundamental trait. It sets you free. It respects. It doesn't pressure, doesn't demand, doesn't try to mold the other into its own expectations. True love feels light, even when it's intense. It doesn't suffocate. It doesn't trap. It doesn't manipulate. Emotional attachment, on the other hand, comes from inner scarcity. It needs the other to feel safe. It needs to be seen, validated, wanted, constantly. And when it's not, it panics. If you feel like the bond depends on constant watchfulness, on ongoing reassurance to keep it alive, maybe what's there is more attachment than love. There are a few simple and hard questions that can help draw the line. Ask yourself, do you feel free around this person? Or are you scared to say the wrong thing and mess everything up? Do you feel like you can truly be yourself? Or are you always trying to please, measuring your words, adjusting your behavior just to hold their attention? Love doesn't need a performance. Attachment does. Another question, does this person see the real you? Your flaws, your limits, your off days, or only when you're shining? Idealization is a classic sign that there's more projection than relationship, and every projection has an expiration date. Eventually, the image breaks, and then the magic turns into pressure, frustration, distance. Jung insisted that a true connection between two people only happens when each is willing to look inward before trying to find the other. Love is only possible between whole people. Attachment, on the other hand, is a bond between halves, hoping the other will fill what's missing. If the feeling is genuine, it will hold, even in silence, even in pauses, even without guarantees. Because it doesn't rely on control, it just is. And if it's not love, that's okay. Sometimes what hurts isn't losing the other person, but losing the image you created of how things should have been. and recognizing that is already a huge step toward emotional freedom. And what if, in the middle of all this reflection, you realize that maybe you're the one who's been loving in silence? That this unspoken feeling isn't really about them, but about a part of you that hasn't had the courage to come forward. Maybe you saw yourself in many of the signs we talked about, not as the one receiving them, but as the one expressing them. You're the one who remembers the details, who cares quietly, who avoids direct eye contact, who changes when they're around. You feel it, but you don't say it. And why not? It could be fear. Fear of ruining a friendship, of being rejected, of not being reciprocated. It could be pride, that shield we use to protect our vulnerability at all costs. Or maybe you're still trying to figure out what you feel. Love, sometimes, arrives uninvited, illogical, and it's scary. Loving in silence might feel safe. You don't expose yourself, you don't take risks. But over time, what protects also suffocates. The feeling stays stuck, somewhere between your heart and your throat, and you start living stories in your mind that never really happen. Time passes, the other person moves on, and you stay in the same place, waiting for something that may never come, and that you may never have the courage to go after. Jung believed in the importance of integrating what's hidden, bringing to light what lives in the shadow, and loving in silence, however poetic it may seem, is often just that, a part of you left in the dark, but it wants to be seen, wants to be heard, not necessarily to be declared to someone else, but to be acknowledged by you. A simple and powerful exercise is to write. No filter, no editing, no worrying about grammar, just you and the page. Write what you feel, what you avoid, what you fear. Let it all out. It's a way of giving voice to what's been quiet inside you, a kind of silent catharsis, but one that transforms. Because before asking anything of someone else, you need to truly hear yourself. And sometimes, in that process of listening, you realize it's time to let go. Or maybe, just maybe, to find the courage to finally say it. But what if that love isn't reciprocated? You saw the signs, you felt the connection, you waited for something to be revealed, but slowly, it became clear. Maybe they don't feel the same, or they do, but don't want to act on it, or they feel something, just not what you feel, and it hurts. Unrequited love is one of the most human, and paradoxically, most lonely experiences, because the feeling is entirely yours. You can't share it with the one who caused it. There's no reciprocation, no promise, no future, just you and your feelings. But that doesn't mean it's a worthless experience. Quite the opposite. With time and care, it can become one of the most transformative. Loving without being loved back doesn't lessen the intensity of what you felt. It doesn't erase the beauty of your emotion. It just shows that to truly love, you also need to accept the limits of reality. It's natural, at first, to try to convince yourself there's still a chance, that maybe they just need more time, that maybe you misread the signs. But there comes a moment when holding on turns into self-sabotage, when feeding a hope without a foundation becomes a way to stay stuck in something that doesn't exist. The way forward isn't to deny the feeling, but to give it a new meaning. You can love someone and still let them go, because love doesn't have to end for you to move on. It just needs to find a new place inside you, to stop being an expectation and become a lesson. There are practical ways to deal with this. First, break the cycle of idealization. Stop replaying every gesture, every conversation in your mind. That only feeds the illusion. Second, focus your energy on your real present. People, projects, movement. Third, allow yourself to feel. Cry, write, talk. Pretending it doesn't hurt just stretches out the pain. Jung said, "What we deny controls us, and what we accept transforms us." Acknowledging the pain is the first step in taking away its power. And then, slowly, you come back to yourself. You begin to understand that the value of your love doesn't depend on someone else's response. And then, with no drama, no rush, you make peace with what is, and create space for what could be. And if, despite everything, you feel like you need to speak, sometimes you feel like you just can't hold it in anymore. The silence that once protected you begins to feel like a prison. And then comes the question, what if I say it? What if I open up? Not impulsively, not to pressure, but because you need to be honest with what you feel. Declaring your feelings isn't about getting the other person. It's about freeing yourself from a silent expectation that's holding you back. It's about giving a name to what's alive inside you and allowing it to move wherever it needs to go. But how you do it matters. And awareness is what turns a confession into an act of maturity, not one of desperation. First, ask yourself why you want to say it. Is it to ease the tension, to create a real chance for something to begin, or to try and make them feel the same? If your answer is more about being loved back than about expressing yourself, it might not be the right time yet. Second, choose your moment with respect, for them and for yourself. Avoid impulsive settings, random texts, or moments of intense vulnerability. Love deserves a worthy space to be spoken, even if it's simple, even if it's not returned. Third, speak with calm, clarity, and sincerity. Don't dramatize. Don't demand an immediate answer. Just say what you feel, and let silence do its work. Now, as a pause, not a prison. Carl Jung said our mission is to make the unconscious conscious. And expressing a feeling is exactly that, bringing something out of the dark that's been hidden for a long time. Maybe they won't feel the same. Maybe they will. But the most important thing is that by expressing it, you're no longer a prisoner of maybe, and that alone is liberating. Unspoken love isn't any less real. It just took a different path, the one of quiet presence, of subtle gestures, of signals few ever notice, except for those willing to see. Maybe someone came to mind. Maybe you're living this story right now. Or maybe you've realized that, for a long time, you misread something that was actually a feeling in disguise. What matters is that now, you see more clearly. Because silent love doesn't live in words. It lives in the details. In what happens when no one is watching. Carl Jung said what remains unconscious controls us. When we learn to notice the signs we once ignored, we gain freedom. Freedom to choose with more awareness, to feel with more presence, to stop repeating stories that hurt us quietly. You don't have to become paranoid or try to decode every little gesture like it's a hidden message, but you do have to be open to feel, and mature enough not to rely on obvious confirmation. Some feelings never become words, and that's okay. What's not okay is losing yourself waiting for them. Love can be subtle, but your awareness doesn't have to be blind. In the end, recognizing unspoken love is an act of sensitivity, of listening, of courage. It may not change the story, but it can change you, and that changes everything. Only those who've learned to see beyond words can recognize the love that isn't said. And once you see it, you'll never love the same way again. If this video made sense to you, if it touched something inside, subscribe to the channel. Here, we talk about what almost no one dares to, the emotional backstage of human connections. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next videos. We've got much more on relationships, the unconscious, and the signs we need to learn to read. And if you've made it this far, I want to know. Comment below, I've learned to hear the silence. That way I'll know you stayed until the end, and that somehow, this content found a real place inside you. See you in the next video.